Hello and thanks for stopping by. This is the Book of the Dead for the Commodore 64, made by the CRL Group and released in 1987. I'm playing this game on a C64 full-sized console, which is great, because you can use save states as you go, and this game really needs it. This is a text-adventure game for the Commodore 64, but also has small pictures in the center of the screen as you navigate through the different areas. And some of the areas, especially early on, might not actually have a screen, but instead they'll substitute it with a Book of the Dead splash image instead. There were a few different versions of the game released for different systems, the ZX Spectrum and I believe the Amstrad as well. This is a text-based game and the standard directional commands work. North, south, east and west, up or down, and you can type INV for your inventory. You start the game floating in a spheroid. This part basically took me 80 tries before I managed to get out. The game has just started and I'm already stuck. The command is break spheroid, and then basically you're born. You fall to a hillside and now the game starts. You have to use the exact words, break spheroid. You can't say hit spheroid, hit wall, stand up, whatever. I tried everything. Break spheroid is the way to go. The setting here for this game basically is thousands of years ago, and you are a young god of some sort living in Egypt, I guess, and you just spawn to life. When you see text description for an area, it's relatively basic in terms of the description you're getting, and any items of real importance are highlighted. I can't say I'm a fan of highlighting objects like this. It's the game's way of telling you that you have to interact with something, and honestly, I don't like being led so directly. I don't think there's a need for it. But it turns out that this doesn't actually tell you everything you can interact with. There are things you still need to search, so that's maybe even a little more confusing. I am a fan of one thing that I ran into early on. The descriptions will tell you exactly where the exits are. North, south, east, and west. If it tells you south, east, and west, and not north, but then you try to go north, you might actually die. It's possible you can walk off of a cliff. I think that's pretty clever. They make it so you have to actually pay attention to where you are. I like that. There are also other little oddities with the game, like there's a spot where you have to lift some weights to get stronger, and then on another screen you need to lift a boulder. Well, when I got to the boulder, I knew I had already lifted weights, but it wouldn't let me lift the boulder. I had to drop the knife that I was carrying. I guess I had too many items in my inventory. How many items were in my inventory? 1. Weird. I think it's weird anyway. Drop the knife, I got the boulder. You needed the boulder on another screen. There's a mangonel on another screen. I believe it's pronounced mangonel. It's basically a catapult. So I'm on this other screen, and I don't know what it is. I had to look it up. And then once I understood what it was, I understood what I needed to do, and I got through the section. Interesting enough, I tried this on the ZX Spectrum version, and that screen, the mangonel was actually represented on screen with a graphic, and you could tell what it was right away. I wish that happened here. Overall, I think the idea of being connected to Egyptian gods is kind of interesting, but in this game you can just die at random, and I find that sort of confusing. At least it seems like it's random. You can basically take too much time doing something, and if you do, you might succumb to a curse. It tells you you've succumbed to the curse and you're dead, and then you have to start over. I don't understand this curse, and I don't understand why it comes to you at random. If there is any sort of timer in the game, I wish I knew what it was. There are multiple times where I thought I was progressing pretty well and being reasonably efficient, then the curse kills me and I start over. If I had a better idea of timing, I think it would make this game easier to handle. Because if you keep dying and you have to start over from the beginning, you have to remember every single command to use and every phrase at every step of the way and maximize your efforts in order to get to the next stage. That's a little tedious. So I find myself using save states as I start to progress when I hit certain levels of efficiency. So I made it through the first things you need to accomplish in this game. I got the fleece, I washed and dried the fleece, I located the rope, and then there was a stage where I continued to die while I tried to climb down a rope. So I was clearly missing something. I wandered around for a while, and I kept staring to try to figure out what I was missing here, but then I came to the conclusion that maybe I wasn't missing something, but the game was broken? I don't know. Then I went and found a ZX Spectrum walkthrough on YouTube. I followed the instructions exactly the same, And then when I went to climb down the rope, well, on the ZX Spectrum version, I do all these steps and it works. When I did it, I was falling to my death. Very strange. But then I went even a step further and I found a ZX Spectrum emulator website online, and I played this part of the game, and I followed the video, and it did work. So, I don't know. I went back to the Commodore version, I tried it yet another time, and for some reason I was doing the same steps. Suddenly it worked. So, I don't know. I'm guessing there might be something weird with either the order I was originally trying to do things. I don't know. I tried to do the same thing a dozen times and I kept failing. But then it worked, so take that for what it's worth. Still, it was a lot of effort, but it was a relief that I made it down the rope. Also in this process, what I did learn was you can actually abbreviate the items you're trying to use. If you use only the first 3 letters of an item or a function, it's going to work. I was not expecting this. I guess this saves typing, but you can actually abbreviate your functions to get through quicker. Once I made it past the particular spot with the rope, as confusing and frustrating as that was, it was actually really nice to start seeing different screens. I know the graphics are nothing special here, they're really basic, but the colors shift and you get different sort of views, and it really kind of helps the game along. Not bad. I don't understand the whole thing about the curse and randomly dying. In text-based games, you need to try tons of different combinations of commands to try to figure out what you're supposed to do. And to be in the middle of that and suddenly die and have to start over from the beginning, I find that crazy. I'm using a C64 machine, so I can easily save a state and then jump back to that area and try it again. But every time you die and get sent back to the beginning, it's a real hassle. I can jump in pretty quick and it's still frustrating. I can only imagine that somebody using an actual Commodore 64 back in 1988 that was running this game was probably getting really upset that they kept getting sent back to the beginning, because it probably would have to reload every single time. Overall, I guess besides this curse thing that I clearly don't understand, so far this is an okay text game. I mean, I've only made it partially through a couple of the hurdles, and now I'm at the River Nile, not sure what I'm supposed to be doing, but I think the graphics work okay here, and the overall setting in Egypt, it's a nice change. I think a lot of text games that I experienced in the past, a lot of them had to do with dungeons and monsters and stuff like that. But to have a setting in Egypt, that's a decent change. Not so bad. Well, that's all I have for the Book of the Dead for the Commodore 64. Thanks for giving this one a look, and I'll catch you on another video.